Hello there, people. If you know me or you know my channel at all, you'll know that I've got quite what's considered a radical stance on mental illness. I mean, let's have it right. I don't believe it exists. I think it's a myth. Thomas Szasz famously wrote a book called The Myth of Mental Illness. And Thomas Szasz said some very interesting things that I might as well get out now. For instance, you can't find a mental illness on a dead body. You can find real illnesses like cancer and thrombosis, you name it. But when someone has a mental illness, there's no biological markers. I know you think, yes, there is schizophrenia. No, there isn't. Some people with schizophrenia have some biological changes. That's nowhere close to what you need to make an actual medical diagnosis. Also, what is schizophrenia? People who hear sounds are schizophrenic, apparently. People who see things are schizophrenic, apparently. People who don't hear things or hallucinate but think things that other people don't think, they're also diagnosed as schizophrenic. No, I'm sorry, it's far too flimsy. Now, before I start, I just want to say, I'm not saying humans don't suffer. I'm not saying that people who have been diagnosed with mental illnesses haven't got problems that need sorting out. This doesn't come from a place of anger and resent for massive pharmaceutical companies that make a fortune pushing drugs on vulnerable and usually damaged people. It actually comes from a place of wanting these people to get better help should they want it. But in that should they want it, another can of worms is open, because what exactly is treatment? Are we talking about making people normal? If someone's exhibiting behaviours that are somehow not normal, not how most people react or behave, so we can sort of get them in line by medicating. Oh, you're too hyper. Here's some sedatives, or here's something that will sedate you. Oh, you're a little bit sort of slow and drowsy. Here's something that will wake you up, etc., etc. But we won't go there now. This is a video I found. I thought by accident, but the YouTube mega brain must have somehow got into my brain. My ADHD medications journey, and the channel, I can't remember exactly, but it's called something like ADHD, me and ADHD, I love my ADHD. And I'm being biased there because part of this whole thing is people, they identify with their illness. We see it on social media platforms. It used to be where you're from, sometimes your age or your sex. Now, no, what mental health problems have you got? Oh, bipolar, ADHD, autism, Asperger's, etc., etc. And without a doubt, that's part of this whole thing. So I'm asking a lot of you to be very critical, because even on the right, this stuff is considered, the mental health epidemic. I see it brought up in arguments defending right-wing and nationalist ideas. And, look, think of the mind. What is the mind? It's an idea, isn't it? It's an abstraction. At best, it's a concept. How does that get ill? How does the mind get ill? Could it be that what we're actually looking at isn't pathologies, rather behaviours? Behaviours that society has realised, if they stand out from the crowd, can be deemed as illnesses and then treated. Let's check out Mr. ADHD, or whatever his bloody name is. Don't subscribe, smash nothing, enjoy the video. Roll VT.
Good morning, ADHDers.
It didn't take long, did it? Good morning, ADHDers. I understand him wanting a community because they've been dismantled, they've been taken away from us. What he's saying is, good morning, my people. Good morning, people who are like me. Nothing wrong with that, but shouldn't we be finding that in things that connect us rather than pseudo-medical diagnoses? Are these the new communities? Sick people. Okay. Supposedly sick people at that.
Today I am going to talk about ADHD medications, my experience on the medications, which has been overall fantastic.
Have you seen that movie Limitless, where he takes this apparently sort of new drug and it just makes him super quick, super fast, he can remember everything, meaning he can recall everything and process it and pretty much do everything? That's the feeling I get when someone's, who would, my time on these drugs has been fantastic. I expect that to be the sort of thing people say after an evening on the Jack and Jills or a bit of sulphate. Weird that we should get onto sulphate, because ADHD medication is essentially speed.
So I was diagnosed aged 44, and a huge relief to me. And the next day, literally the next day, I started on...
A huge relief to him. Why? Because suddenly all his behaviours that distinguished him from others, that he didn't have the strength of character to accept, that made him different. And that's all right, it's not for everyone, but, and again, if people want to take drugs and treat their behaviours, crack on. But it was a relief because he could suddenly say, I'm not necessarily responsible for who I am, and he can take some drugs to change that.
On Elvance on 20 milligrams for a few days, and then moved up to 30 milligrams. And Elvance, even on the first day, it was amazing. It was really, really amazing. I felt as though, well, they describe it as suddenly wearing glasses and seeing clearly, and it really was like that.
That's how I spoke about the first time I'd done LSD.
And I was able to sit down and concentrate on something that was boring to me.
Okay, that's a good thing, is it? I mean, talk about kicking people into shape. I could sit down and do something I didn't want to. There's a reason there's things we don't like doing. It allows us to sort of fiddle through the noise a little bit and concentrate on things we do like doing, that we might become good at, we might progress to being an expert at, and therefore become productive members of a healthy society. But no, we can now drug people so they're quite happy doing very boring, repetitive, manual tasks that they essentially don't want to do. Nice one, mate. There you go. Kicked into shape. Sweet. Amazing. Those glasses that you could now see, they certainly obscured your ability to see a boring job.
Easily, and I could maintain it, and that was massive. That was massive, because my ADHD that I didn't know I had all those years.
He didn't know he had it all those years. I mean, how much of a problem was it? How much of a problem was that? I mean, if you don't get diagnosed, if you don't start drugging yourself until your mid-40s, was it really a problem? I mean, give yourself a real disease for 40 odd years and see how you get away with that.
Years basically meant that if I was interested in it, I could hyper-focus, and if I wasn't interested in it, or I found it dull, boring, repetitive.
Yeah, that's okay. That is like, that's natural selection of the individual regarding tasks at hand. No one likes doing boring, repetitive stuff. No one likes doing it. I mean, very repetitive and boring stuff, people need to give you money to do it. But stuff you do like doing, yes, you can focus on it, and that's the risk you take. You decide to specialise on something and you become an expert in that field. But now, no worries, you can be jack of all trades and ADHD master of none.
Monotonous, pointless, it wasn't going to get done. I'd start, but it wouldn't go anywhere near as far as it needed to go.
You didn't want to do it.
On that first morning, I remember feeling the medication exactly an hour after taking it just sort of click in.
Coming up.
And I'd been told to sit myself down at my desk.
Mate, you're going to love it. Put some Osric tentacles on. Here we go.
And to just put the thing in front of me that I wanted to complete or, get going on.
No, the words you mean is put the thing in front of you that you didn't want to do.
And that's what I did. And I remember about an hour and a half after having got going on what I was trying to do, I remember suddenly noticing the time and realising that I hadn't stopped since the medicine kicked in.
Like a machine. I mean, you know, Soma in Brave New World. If you're not feeling comfortable with something, anything, just have some Soma. It takes away your ability to discern between things you like doing and things you don't like doing. You know, it all just sort of blends into one sort of, yeah, this is my life.
And I just thought, I mean, it was like a party in my head.
Why would you be this happy about a drug that so far all he said is it allowed him to do, his words, pointless, boring things? Okay, great. Nice one, robot.
And I went straight back to continuing doing it. I just, it was revolutionary, and I felt such joy. And I still do. And yeah, it just got better. I got to learn how to get myself going. My ADHD coach had told me to go for a 10-minute brisk walk before I sit down to the work, and to have the work ready on the table, because the problem is, if you've got focus, the medication gives you the ability to blinker yourself and not see all of this, but just to focus on what's like in this beam of light coming
sort of behaviour you'd expect from a slave or something
out. And if you don't focus it on, well, if I didn't focus it on something that I really wanted to get done, then of course the focus could go anywhere. I mean, yeah, so she described it to me as like one of those stage lights pointing down at the stage, and you've got to focus that beam of light on what it is you want to achieve. And when I did that, I would just do whatever it was. And but if I got distracted by, let's say, a noise or something out the window, you know, if I started to focus on something else, then yeah, I would blink myself onto that, and then I guess could.
There's a reason this fella keeps walking himself up kind of conceptual cul-de-sacs, because he kind of sees the irony and perhaps truth of what he's saying. You know, this is everyone. This is everyone. What if there's something you don't want to do that you consider pointless? He said that. It's easy to be distracted by anything. You know. Procrastination is a thing. People are easily, you know, that mate who rings you that you never answer, suddenly, oh, hello, yeah, because you don't want to sort out that spreadsheet. Yeah, that's just normal. And okay, so he might be less able to focus than the majority of humans, right? So you're a bit different like that than most people. Perhaps, I'm not saying he is, but let's assume he is. Does that require medication? He's free to do that if he wants, but is this a healthy society? That he feels the need to be kicked into shape so that he appears more normal. And you know, taking dexamphetamines, Ritalin, and there's a slight variation on, I can't remember what it's called actually. There's one of them that doesn't, your body metabolises it into an amphetamine, but you know, long-term amphetamine use has side effects. The fella's got children. I think his wife might have ADHD as well, because the hashtags, and this is a guess, but you'll see why. The hashtags in this video is hashtag ADHD dad and hashtag ADHD mum. What do you reckon the chances those kids are going to have ADHD? You know, this indulgence in this. I mean, all his videos are about it. His whole identity is built around it. And is that a healthy place for children to see? You know, maybe. I mean, no.
Waste hours. But I just thought, wow, this is amazing. I can point my direction wherever I want to. Point my focus, my attention. And so this was just, yeah, it was like party in my head. It was just such relief, such excitement.
Yeah, that's how people respond to taking amphetamines. They love it. They can focus. They tidy their houses up. They strip copper wire. You know, they get right into things. And trust me, it feels like a party in their head. It's excellent, yeah. Come down, not so good. Long-term effects on your brain, not so good. On drains on your body, not so good.
The possibilities. And so to go through
the possibilities of this new wonder drug that I just could focus. It's like limitless.
my sort of different stages of medication. So I started on Elvance, 20 up to 30.
They love all this. They love talking about it. You know, I've heard it. I mean, it's like junkies will sit around talking about junk. Like stoners will sit around talking about all the varieties of weeds, the percentage of THC. You know, this is an indulgence in this medication, and it's become part of him. It's become, I would suggest, the larger part of his identity.
And then what I started to find, the Elvance is a slow release mechanism. So you ingest it and the white powder inside the capsule basically gets absorbed, but it doesn't all get converted.
The white powder in a Rizzler, in a cigarette paper.
In one go to the amphetamine that stimulates us. So there's a mechanism that uses enzymes in the blood, and basically they break it down over time, so you get this slow release throughout the day. But what I was finding was that this slow release didn't really work so well for me from about 2 p.m. onwards, to, you know, depending on what time I'd taken the first dose. And so I was finding myself kind of just like crashing out in the afternoon, crashing out sort of focus-wise, and it was just like really frustrating to me. So I spoke to my psychiatrist.
Yeah, but why? What happened when it started running out? What happened when you started coming down? Why was it frustrating? I'll tell you why. Because he couldn't focus like a hyper maniac on things like speed freaks do.
Who then said to me, okay, so you take the 30 at breakfast or when you wake up, and then take a 20 early afternoon, and that did work. It gave me the sort of the distance,
buzz.
But it also I ended up having quite a bad panic attack, and I ended up I was driving the car when it happened, and I pulled into a petrol station, you know, a motorway services. I was on the M4, and I was having a panic attack, but it felt like my heart was racing too much, and
it was
the panic disorder that I suffered years and years ago, which
the panic disorder. This isn't a panic disorder. You're full of amphetamine, and it's your heart's going 10 to the dozen, and you're terrified. Straight away, another mental illness, panic disorder. No, it's not a disorder. You're panicking, and rightly so. Your body is responding to something happening to you, and because of you, allowing you to take stock and maybe make changes. It's not a disorder. I mean, you can put you know, in the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the Psychiatry Bible, it's now what is it? Substance addiction syndrome, something like that. It's now a syndrome. I mean, addiction was already a mental health nonsense, but now it's an addiction syndrome. No, it's not that you're choosing to take drugs all the time. No, it's a syndrome. Nonsense.
Had been under control for years. Anyway, it kicked in, and I found myself lying on the floor in front of Costa Cafe, calling my psychiatrist, calling an ambulance to come.
There's something about him on his iPhone to his psychiatrist that reminds me of someone in the past who would have, in such a situation, would have prayed to God. You know, the idea that his panic syndrome kicked in. I feel for this bloke. Don't get me wrong. I'm not digging him out. I know I do laugh occasionally, but I'm laughing at psychiatry. I'm laughing at the myth of mental illness and how deep people are lost in that whole web of deceit. You know, my panic disorder kicked in. How do you get to that stage when you can't understand that you're just panicking?
Because I thought I was going to die, and I just felt like I was kind of slipping away. So it was a really scary moment, and there were a couple of really kind people who just kind of sat with me, and then the ambulance arrived really quickly, and they took me into the ambulance, and I had taken, when I felt the panic attack coming on, I'd taken a calmant drug. You know, I'd taken
Valium. Diazepam.
God, I'm having a mental block. Sorry.
Brand name
This
Valium.
is just, when this happens, okay, this is a whole separate video. But yeah, I need to remember that word.
Take another drug. Chasing Paul with Peter.
Now I'm focusing on it. I can't remember it. I'm going to move on. I took a pill to stop me having the panic attack, or stop the panic attack from getting worse, and that worked within 15 minutes.
I mean, you know, following this logic, why not have a load of pills and powders available for when you're panicking, when you're anxious, when you're nervous, you know, one for each of those syndromes, so that whatever the situation, you don't feel anything. There you go, sweet. You can be perfectly normal throughout life. Let me tell you something, life is difficult, life is challenging, life throws things at you. Your response to those with things like anxiety, stress, worry, panic, they're helping you. They're part of negotiating the difficulties of life and getting through it successfully with occasional happiness and even more occasional joy. But when you're dampening those, more often than not, you also dampen the happiness and you also dampen the joy. You know, you're just sort of in the middle of it, inert.
I was fine, my blood pressure had come down, and that's right, that's what sent me into the panic attack, because I was taking my blood pressure to make sure everything was all right.
He was checking his blood pressure. That was his behaviour. He checked his blood pressure because the numbers threw him. That's why he had a panic attack. No, you panicked when you saw the number. Why is he taking his blood pressure? Maybe the psychiatrist told him to. I don't know. Maybe.
And what happened was that the blood pressure went over the sort of kind of the level that I was expecting it to be, or you know, needing to maintain it under, and that's what started the panic attack. I panicked that suddenly, you know, it had gone up too much, and that it was going to continue going up, and so I panicked about that. And anyway, I was fine. The ambulance people released me, and I got back in my car, and I drove home absolutely fine. But that kind of put the wind up me. So I spoke to my doctor, and I moved to a different slow-release medication.
Now look, you know, maybe he's talked about it in another video, but I still don't know exactly what he's medicating here. I still don't know what the problems are. And I'd imagine that was kind of relevant. Why, when he's talking about all these medications, why wouldn't he explain how they dealt with the problems that this so-called mental illness gave him? Was it really that you can't focus on things you don't like? Because that's all he's offered.
Concerta, and so Concerta is methylphenidate as opposed to amphetamine, and that worked very well. You know, it's a very similar effect on my focus, and anyway, that was also the problem was the lasting through the day. So I kind of found myself being really frustrated again, and so I then tried an instant release. So the same medication, the same methylphenidate.
Snorted it.
That's in Concerta, but in an instant release. So I'd take one in the morning, one at lunch, one mid-afternoon, and
I was speeding my tits off 24/7. Turn it up, Voodoo Ray.
That was it. That seemed to be the way that just worked for me, and it worked.
I was off my nut, and that was it. That seemed to be the one. Always speeding. Yeah, sure. Really? You can't see, mate, really? Wow. Of course, because it's been given to him by a qualified psychiatrist, he doesn't for a minute just see this as an institution giving him drugs, and those drugs making him feel good. I mean, apart from the bit where he nearly crashed his car and had to get in an ambulance because his heart was jumping out of his chest. I mean, we have to put that to one side. He certainly keeps his house tidy.
Wonderfully. I think I was on 10. I varied it, so I would take a 10 milligrams if I needed to work, because that gave me the total blinkering that I needed to focus.
I mean, I'd take 10 milligrams if I needed to work. There you go. Right. But it wasn't long ago. He was taking it all the time. I bet he had a baseline, and he took these additional bits if he needed to do anything. Ooh, the long-term motivation, the long-term effects on motivation that amphetamines and related stimulants causes. You know, he's going to be fighting an ongoing exponential battle with this. It's actually really, really sad.
In on the work. If I was doing like family kind of stuff with my family, my children, my wife, or just, you know, normal sort of day-to-day stuff, I would take a smaller dose, the 5 milligrams, because it works for like 3 to 4 hours.
But why? Why? What couldn't you do with your family?
So I was able to have kind of 2 different doses, one for when I'm working and one for a lower dose for when I'm just like doing life. The reason, I found that when I was kind of doing life, just being with the kids, I found that being on the higher dose made me a bit impatient, intolerant.
It didn't help him focus on his family at all.
Frustrating, just edgy. And so I started, that's how I discovered taking half the dose worked better for those moments, like when they'd come back from school and, you know, being with them, playing with.
And if for a moment you don't think his kids have grown up knowing that their father can just switch in an instant and is out of his head, they know it. Trust me, they can tell. You see children around alcoholic parents; they're so aware of their the drinkers' behaviours and how it can snap and how it changes. Now 1 minute it's gushing and the next minute it's angry, and they just end up treading on eggshells because there's no trust there. You know why? Because there's no person left. It's the narcotic. That's not great for kids. Do I need to say that?
Them. The higher dose was just, I was a bit too much like.
That
worked really well, and I didn't have that much in the beginning. I had, especially on the Elvance, I had more of an appetite reduction. I felt like I could kind of go through the day eating very little, and then when the medication would wear off, I would binge eat basically, and that too is another video coming soon.
And that will be. And I stick 20 quid on it. That video will be about his eating disorder. So then after 3 months of really putting the medication to work with me and just getting so much done, it suddenly stopped working like that, and I didn't know what was going on, and so I tried taking a little bit more, a bit less, and my doctor said to me, okay, just stop for a couple of days, and I think I stopped for 3 days, and then I remember. Yeah, but hang on. Okay, please tell me what happened in those 3 days. What was the hell of this illness that requires you to be taking amphetamines daily, dexamphetamine? Did let me know what happened.
Praying that please work again. The thought of it not working anymore, and especially considering how I'd felt through those 3 days, because I really basically became a couch potato. Lazy. I wasn't good for much other than Netflix, and even Netflix. It was just I'd got used to
speeding,
having motivation on tap.
There you go. Yeah, we could all get used to that, but life isn't like that. Life's not like that, I'm afraid.
And that, to me, was just magic.
Yeah, or like Soma.
So being without it was pretty dull, boring, and
welcome to the real world.
Sad, because I couldn't do the things that I wanted to be doing, and so thankfully I took it again, and it just worked again, and that was great. And it worked for another 3 months, and then I had another drop like that, sudden sort of just stopped working. I remember it was the middle of the day, and it had worked the morning dose, and then I took the lunchtime dose, and it just didn't. It didn't switch on. I was left there waiting and unfocused, and so I started to think, God, is this going to be a regular occurrence? You know, is this going to happen every?
Yes, because you've got so many brain chemicals and all those mood chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, all those neurotransmitters that you're playing God with. They are all going to be, adjusting and counterbalancing all this amphetamine you're putting into the system, or other stimulants. Wow, I mean,
every X number of months, or is it going to get worse and be every few weeks? Or so I did the same again, and I can't remember if it was that one or the next time it stopped working. But Christmas time, before Christmas on 2020. It stopped working again, and I started feeling kind of nauseous and tired. So I'd take the medication and I'd feel more nauseous and tired than I did if I wasn't taking it. And I ended up, I basically spent a month off medication, which...
Right, here we go. Let's find out how this so-called mental illness affected him without the meds.
Wasn't easy. I mean, it wasn't terrible.
It wasn't terrible, wasn't easy. No, life isn't easy and life isn't terrible, but it wasn't as good as being on the old powder all the time.
But I was ineffective, I wasn't productive, and I was in the middle, of doing stuff, getting stuff done. I'd been enjoying however many months of that, and it was hard, but I did get used to it. I did use some...
I mean, there you go. That's why he got used to being himself for 44 years. I mean, that's his own words. It wasn't terrible. I mean, it wasn't easy. Wow. Would you really... I mean, look, I've got nothing against people taking drugs. That would be ridiculous, but can't he see this? And I'd suggest no, he can't see the obvious truth here. Why? Because the prize is too good. And it's been medically sanctioned by the bullshit that is psychiatry.
Strong tea, which I don't know whether...
And I tried another stimulant.
Well, I was in a...
Crack.
Low state. And it kind of made me anxious about the future of my medication. Was it going to...
My dealer's disappeared.
Ever work again? And after Christmas, it worked again. But I was quite freaked out by the idea of having to spend a whole month with it not working. And it's now... and then, so the next bit of the story is that I can't remember why. It started working again, but because...
All right, enough of this, because I'll be here all night, and we've already done 30 minutes. Let me know what you think about mental illness in the comments. You know pretty much what I think about it. If you're interested in further reading, Thomas Szasz, S-Z-A-Z-S, The Myth of Mental Illness, and Jeffrey Sharla, who's been on my channel twice, Addiction is a Choice. Ta-da!